The message arrived at 11:47 p.m. One simple notification, one small sound from a phone that wasn't mine, and one moment that changed my entire life. I wish I could tell you that I was suspicious before that night. I wish I could tell you that there were signs. But the truth is, I trusted my husband completely. For 12 years, I believed we had the kind of marriage people dreamed about. Not perfect, not some fairy tale, but real, strong, built on trust. Or at least that's what I thought. My name is Emily. I'm 38 years old. And this story begins on a rainy Thursday night. My sixth discovered that when I accidentally discovered that the man I loved had been living a completely different life. A life I knew nothing about. A life that would eventually lead to the most shocking revenge anyone in our town had ever seen. But before I tell you what I did, you need to understand exactly what happened. Because if you only saw the ending, you'd think I was cold. You'd think I was calculating. You'd think I planned everything from the start. I didn't. At first, I was just a wife whose heart had been broken. Nothing more, nothing less. That evening had started normally. My husband, Ryan, came home around 6. He kissed me on the forehead, asked about my day, complained about traffic, the usual things. We ate dinner together, watched half a movie, talked about our daughter Sophia's upcoming school trip. Everything seemed normal, completely normal. Looking back now, that's the part that scares me most. How normal he acted, how easily he lied, how comfortably he sat across from me, knowing what he was hiding. Around 10 o'clock, Ryan said he was tired to bed. I stayed up to bed. I stayed downstairs, cleaning the kitchen. Then I curled up on the couch with a book. About an hour later, I decided to join him. As I walked upstairs, I noticed his phone sitting on the bathroom counter. That was unusual. Ryan never forgot his phone. Ever. I picked it up, intending to bring it into the bedroom. That's when it buzzed. A message. The screen lit up. And because the phone wasn't locked yet, I saw the preview. 3 words. 3 simple words. I miss you. Followed by a red heart. My stomach dropped. Immediately. Instantly. I don't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe some part of me already knew. The sender's name was saved as Michael Work. But no man named Michael sends heart emojis and messages saying, I miss you, at nearly midnight. At least not usually. For a few seconds, I just stared, trying to make sense of it, trying to find another explanation. Then another message appeared. I wish I was with you tonight. My hands started shaking. The bathroom suddenly felt smaller. The air felt heavier. And for the first time in 12 years, I wondered if my husband was lying to me. I should have walked away. I should have waited until morning. I should have confronted him directly. But heartbreak doesn't follow rules. So I opened the message, and everything fell apart. There weren't just a few texts. There were hundreds. Months of conversations. Months of secrets. Months of saces. I sat on the bathroom floor reading messages until tears blurred my vision. They talked about hotels, private dinners, weekend trips, inside jokes, future plans. And then I saw the sentence that shattered whatever hope I had left. Ryan had written, once things are settled, we won't have to hide anymore. Not if, when, not maybe. Definitely. They were planning a future together. A future that didn't include me. A future built while I was still cooking dinners and folding his laundry and believing every word he said. I don't remember how long I sat there. 10 minutes, 30, an hour. Time stopped making sense. I only remember one thing. The sound of Ryan's voice behind me. Emily? I looked up. He was standing in the doorway. Half asleep. Confused. Then he saw the phone, and his face changed. I'll never forget that moment. Not because he looked guilty. Because he looked caught. There is a difference. A huge difference. A guilty person feels bad. A caught person feels unlucky. And Ryan looked very unlucky. Neither of us spoke. Not immediately. The silence stretched between us. Heavy. Painful. Unavoidable. Finally, I whispered one question. Who is she? His shoulders dropped. The mask was gone, the lies was over, and the truth was about to begin. Little did I know. The truth was even worse than the affair itself. Ryan sat across from me in our kitchen until sunrise. Neither of us slept. How could we? Our marriage was collapsing right in front of us. At first, he denied everything. Of course he did. People always deny things when they think there's still a chance. It's not what it looks like. I can explain. You're misunderstanding. The usual excuses. The usual nonsense. I listened quietly. Then I showed him screenshots. Every message. Every conversation. Every lie. His excuses disappeared, one by one. Finally, he admitted it. Her name was Vanessa. They had been seeing each other for almost 18 months. 18 months. A year and a half. 547 days. Not that I counted. At least not then. Later, I counted everything. Every day. Every lie. Every betrayal. Because that's what happens when someone breaks your heart. Your mind becomes obsessed with details. You replay everything. Searching for answers. Searching for clues. Searching for the exact moment your life changed. I asked him the question every betrayed spouse asks. Why? And his answer made me sick. It just happened. Just happened. As if affairs appear out of nowhere. As if people accidentally book hotel rooms. As if they accidentally lie every day for 18 months. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because it was such a ridiculous answer. Ryan didn't like that. He started getting defensive. Started blaming stress, work pressure, our routines, life becoming boring. Every excuse except the real one, the real reason. Him. Eventually, I asked a question I was afraid to ask. Do you love her? Silence. That silence told me everything. Because when someone loves you, the answer is immediate. When someone doesn't, they hesitate. Ryan hesitated, and my heart broke all over again. I don't know, he finally said. Wrong answer. Very wrong answer. By morning, I had packed a bag, not for him, for me. I took Sophia and drove to my sister's house. Ryan didn't stop me, didn't chase me, didn't fight for us. And somehow that hurt more than the affair itself. Over the next few weeks, the truth kept getting worse. Every day brought new discoveries, new lies, new betrayals. I learned Vanessa wasn't some random woman. She worked with Ryan. They saw each other every day. Everyone in his office knew. Everyone except me. Imagine that. Being the only person in the room who doesn't know they're being laughed at. That's how it felt. Humiliating. Completely humiliating. Friends started calling, checking on me, offering support. And slowly pieces of the puzzle started appearing. A coworker told me Ryan often left early on Fridays. Another mentioned business trips that never existed. Someone else accidentally revealed that Vanessa had attended a company event as Ryan's guest. Not me. Her. While I stayed home believing he was working late. Every story felt like another knife. Another reminder. Another piece of evidence proving how thoroughly I'd been deceived. Then came the worst discovery. The one that changed everything. The one that transformed me from a heartbroken wife into something else entirely. Some stronger, something dangerous. One afternoon, while organizing financial documents for the divorce lawyer, I found unusual withdrawals. Large withdrawals. Thousands of dollars. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I started digging deeper and deeper and deeper. What I discovered left me speechless. Ryan hadn't just been cheating. He'd been funding a second life. Secret vacations, expensive gifts, luxury apartments, money from our joint accounts. Money intended for Sophia's college fund. Money meant for our family's future. Gone, spent, stolen, just like that. Over $70,000. $70,000. I sat at my dining room table staring at the numbers, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying not to scream. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something bigger, much bigger. Ryan hadn't only broken my heart. He had endangered our future, our daughter's future, and suddenly something shifted inside me. The sadness started fading. The tears stopped, and in their place came something new. Clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. For weeks I had been asking why. Now I was asking something different. How? How could I make sure he faced the consequences? How could I expose the truth? How could I make sure every lie came crashing down? I wasn't interested in revenge yet. Not exactly. I just wanted justice. At least that's what I told myself. But deep down, a different idea was beginning to grow. A month after the separation, Ryan moved in with Vanessa. No shame, no hiding, no guilt. Just like that. 12 years of marriage replaced in 4 weeks. People expected me to fall apart. Some days I almost did. But every time I felt myself breaking, I remembered Sophia. My daughter needed one stable parent, one strong parent, one honest parent. So I focused on rebuilding, focused on healing, focused on surviving, until one afternoon changed everything. Again, it started with an email. A simple email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the whole truth." No name, no explanation, just those words. Most people would have deleted it. I almost did. Then curiosity's won. I opened the message. Inside were 6 attachments, photos, documents, screenshots, and a single sentence. "Ryan isn't who you think he is." My heart started racing. Immediately, I opened the first file, then the second, then the third. With every click, my eyes grew wider, my breathing became slower, and my understanding of the situation changed completely. Because Ryan hadn't only lied to me, he had lied to Vanessa too. The man was running multiple stories at the same time. Different lies for different people, different versions of reality, and somehow keeping them all straight. The documents showed business dealings I'd never heard about. Financial records, contracts, questionable transactions, nothing illegal from what I could tell. But definitely dishonest, very dishonest. Then I found the biggest shock. Ryan had secretly partnered with Vanessa in a business venture, using money that partially came from our accounts. Money I never approved. Money I never knew existed. And according to the records, the business wasn't doing well. In fact, it was close to collapsing. Very close. I sat back in my chair, trying to process everything. Then I noticed something else. The sender had included evidence that Vanessa didn't know the truth either. Ryan had promised her things he couldn't deliver, made commitments he couldn't keep, created dreams built entirely on lies. In that moment, something unexpected happened. I stopped seeing Vanessa as the enemy. Not completely, but enough to realize something important. She wasn't the mastermind, Ryan was. He had manipulated everyone, me, her, friends, coworkers, family, everyone. And suddenly I understood the real story. This wasn't about another woman stealing my husband. This was about a man whose entire life was built on deception. A man who believed he was smarter than everyone around him. A man who thought consequences were something that happened to other people. For the first time since discovering the affair, I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I saw it as opportunity. The truth was already cracking. The foundation was already unstable. All it needed was one push, one carefully timed push, and everything Ryan built would come crashing down. The question was, who had sent the email, and why now? I had no idea, but I was determined to find out. Because something told me this anonymous stranger wasn't finished, and neither was I. For 2 days, I couldn't think about anything except that email. Who sent it? Why send it to me? And why now? I checked the address repeatedly. Nothing. It looked like a temporary account. No name, no clues, no obvious trail. Whoever sent it didn't want to be found, but they definitely wanted me to know the truth. I printed every document, every screenshot, every record. Then I spread them across my dining room table. For hours I studied them, looking for connections, patterns, anything. The more I looked, the more I realized one thing. Ryan's life was much messier than I had imagined. For years, I thought I knew him. thought I understood him, thought I could predict exactly what he would do. Now I wasn't sure I had ever known him at all. One particular document caught my attention. A contract. Ryan and Vanessa had invested heavily in a new consulting company. The business was supposed to make them wealthy, at least according to Ryan. But the financial reports told a different story. Losses, debt, missed payments, failed projects. The company was barely surviving. Yet Ryan kept spending money as if nothing was wrong. Expensive dinners, weekend trips, luxury purchases. The numbers didn't make sense. Unless he was hiding the truth from Vanessa too. That thought stayed with me. Because if Ryan was lying to everyone, eventually those lies would collide. And when they did, the fallout would be impossible to stop. 3 days later, I got another email. This one contained only 4 words. Meet me tomorrow noon. Attached was an address. A small coffee shop across town. No signature, no explanation. I stared at the message for almost 10 minutes. Every warning instinct in my body screamed not to go, but curiosity won again. The next day, I arrived 15 minutes early. I chose a table near the window, ordered coffee, and waited. Every time the door opened, my heart jumped. Then, exactly at noon, someone walked inside. A woman, mid-40s, dark hair, professional clothes, confident posture. She looked directly at me, then approached my table. Emily? I nodded. She sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I never expected. My name is Lisa. I used to work with Ryan. Used to. Past tense, interesting. What do you want? I asked. She sighed. A long, tired sigh. The truth, I stared at her. What truth? The whole truth. For the next hour, Lisa told me things I could barely believe. She had worked alongside Ryan for almost 6 years. During that time, she had watched him manipulate people repeatedly. Clients, coworkers, business partners, friends, anyone useful. According to Lisa, Ryan had a talent. Not for business. Not for leadership. For storytelling. He knew exactly what people wanted to hear. Exactly what promises would make them trust him. Exactly what words would make them lower their guard. And once they trusted him, he used them. The pattern repeated over and over, until eventually people figured him out. By then, he was already moving on to someone else. What changed? I asked. Why tell me now? Lisa looked down at her coffee, then back at me. Because this time he involved innocent people. I immediately thought of Sophia, my daughter. My chest tightened. Lisa noticed. It's not your daughter, she said quickly. I relaxed slightly. Then she continued. It's Vanessa. That surprised me. Completely. Lisa leaned closer. Vanessa thinks she's building a future with Ryan. I didn't answer. She has no idea what's really happening. What do you mean? Lisa hesitated. Then she dropped the bombshell. The business is failing. I already knew that. But her next sentence changed everything. And Ryan is planning to leave her holding most of the debt. Silence. Absolute silence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even after everything he'd done. Even after destroying our marriage. Even after all the lies, friends. Ryan was still planning another betrayal. Another victim. Another escape. It was like watching someone set fire to every bridge behind them. Lisa slid a folder across the table. Inside was more evidence. Emails. Financial projections. Private messages. Documents. Enough information to paint a very clear picture. Ryan wasn't building a future. He was building an exit strategy, and Vanessa had no idea. As we finished our meeting, Lisa gave me one final warning. Ryan always believes he's the smartest person in the room. I nodded. That sounded accurate. She stood up, then paused. And people like that usually make one fatal mistake. What mistake? They underestimate the people they hurt. Then she walked away, leaving me alone with my coffee and a completely new perspective. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the past. I was looking at the future. And Ryan's future was starting to look very dangerous. The idea sounded ridiculous at first, impossible, uncomfortable, maybe even crazy. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Vanessa. The woman who had helped destroy my marriage. The woman I'd blamed for months. The woman I never wanted to see again. What if she didn't know the truth? What if she was being manipulated too? I hated asking myself those questions because they complicated everything. Anger is simple. Hatred is simple, but reality rarely is. A week later, fate made the decision for me. I was leaving a grocery store when I saw her. Vanessa, standing alone beside her car. For a moment I froze. Part of me wanted to leave immediately. Pretend I hadn't seen her. But another part remembered the documents, the emails, the evidence. Before I could change my mind, I walked toward her. She noticed me. Immediately. The color drained from her face. Neither of us spoke. The tension was unbearable. Finally, she whispered, "Emily." I nodded. "Vanessa." Awkward didn't begin to describe it. She looked nervous, guilty, uncomfortable. Honestly, so was I. Then something surprising happened. Tears appeared in her eyes. I never wanted this. The words caught me off guard. For months, I had imagined this conversation. In every version, we argued, shouted, blamed each other. But not this. Never this. "I know you probably hate me." I stayed silent. "I don't blame you." Still silent. Then she said something that changed everything. "Ryan told me you were already planning to leave him." I stared at her. "What?" "He said your marriage ended years ago." My jaw tightened. "He told me you both stayed together only for appearances." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Another lie. Another story. Another version of reality. Vanessa saw my reaction, and slowly, very slowly, understanding appeared on her face. The kind of understanding that hurts. The kind that arrives when someone realizes they've been fooled. "What?" she asked quietly. I looked directly at her. "He lied." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "He lied about all of it." The next 30 minutes happened inside a nearby cafe. Not because we trusted each other, but because we both needed answers. I told her everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts, dates, events, evidence, the truth. At first she resisted, defended him, questioned me. Then I showed her some of the documents, the financial records, the emails, the business information. Her face changed, slowly, painfully, like someone watching their world collapse. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." I wished she was right, but she wasn't. By the time our conversation ended, Vanessa looked completely different. Not physically, emotionally. The confidence was gone. The certainty was gone. The dream Ryan had sold her was beginning to crack. As we stood to leave, she asked one question. "Why are you telling me this?" I thought carefully before answering, because honestly, I wasn't entirely sure myself. Finally, I said, "Because he shouldn't get away with it." Vanessa stared at me, then nodded. For the first time, we agreed on something. A few days later, she called, then again, then again. Slowly, information started flowing between us. Not friendship, not even close, but cooperation. And every new piece of information revealed the same pattern. Ryan was lying to everyone, even now, especially now. What he didn't know was that the people he lied to were finally comparing notes. And the picture we were creating was devastating, absolutely devastating. 6. Building the trap. People imagine revenge as something emotional, impulsive, explosive, a dramatic confrontation, a screaming match, a public scene. Real revenge isn't usually like that. Real revenge is patient, careful, quiet. And that was exactly what happened next. For months, Ryan had controlled the narrative. He decided what people knew, what they believed, what version of events they heard. That control was his greatest weapon, so we decided to take it away. Not through lies, through truth, simple truth. The first step was documentation. Every message, every email, every financial record, every contradiction, every promise he made to one person and denied to another. Everything. Vanessa had access to information I never could have found alone. I had information she never knew existed. Together, the puzzle became complete. The more pieces we uncovered, the worse things looked. Ryan wasn't just dishonest. He was reckless. Promises to investors, promises to clients, promises to business partners, promises to friends. Each person hearing a different story. Each person believing they were getting the truth. It was only a matter of time before everything collided. The question wasn't if, the question was when. Then fate handed us an opportunity, a very public opportunity. Ryan's consulting company was planning a major anniversary celebration, a huge event, clients, investors, partners, community leaders. Everyone important would be there, including local media. Ryan loved attention, always had. He viewed the event as a victory lap, a chance to show everyone how successful he was. The irony was almost unbelievable, because behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. The business was struggling, the relationships were collapsing, the lies were multiplying. Yet Ryan was preparing to stand on a stage and celebrate himself. When Vanessa told me about the event, neither of us spoke for several seconds. The same thought had entered both our minds. This was it, the perfect moment, not for humiliation, for exposure. The difference mattered. We weren't going to invent anything. We weren't going to exaggerate anything. We weren't going to attack him personally. We were simply going to make sure the truth reached the right people. And once that happened, Ryan would face consequences created entirely by his own actions. Over the next few weeks, preparations continued quietly, very quietly. No threats, no warnings, no dramatic speeches, just facts being organized, evidence being verified, stories being cross-checked. Meanwhile, Ryan remained completely unaware, completely confident, completely certain he was winning. Watching him from a distance was fascinating. He acted like a man standing on solid ground. He had no idea the ground beneath him was already cracking. Then, 1 week before the event, something happened that neither Vanessa nor I expected. Ryan proposed to her, publicly, in front of friends, in front of coworkers, in front of cameras. Everyone applauded, everyone celebrated, everyone smiled, except Vanessa, because she knew the truth now. And for the first time, Ryan couldn't read the room. He mistook her hesitation for surprise. He mistook her silence for emotion. He mistook her uncertainty for happiness. The proposal video spread across social media within hours. People called it romantic, beautiful, perfect. But when I watched it, I saw something else. A man making promises he couldn't keep. Again, a man performing confidence while standing on the edge of disaster. Again, and a man who still believed nobody knew the truth. That was his biggest mistake. Because by then, the truth was no longer hidden. The countdown had already begun, and in just a few days, Ryan's entire world was about to change. The only question was how much would still be standing when the dust settled. The anniversary event arrived on a Friday evening. For weeks, Ryan had talked about it online, promoted it, celebrated it, bragged about it. According to him, it would be the biggest milestone of his career. A night that would prove how successful he had become. A night people would remember. Ironically, he was right. People would remember it, just not for the reasons he imagined. The event was held at an expensive hotel ballroom downtown. The kind of place with crystal chandeliers, polished floors, and waiters carrying trays of sparkling drinks. Everything looked perfect. At least on the surface. Guests began arriving around 6 o'clock. Business partners, clients, investors, community leaders, former coworkers, friends, even a few local reporters. The room quickly filled with laughter and conversation. Everyone dressed their best, everyone smiling, everyone believing they were attending a celebration. Ryan stood near the entrance greeting guests, shaking hands, posing for photos, looking happier than I had ever seen him. If someone didn't know the truth, They would have thought he was unstoppable. Vanessa arrived shortly before 7. The engagement ring sparkled under the ballroom's lights. People congratulated her constantly. They hugged her, praised Ryan, talked about their future together. Each compliment seemed to make her more uncomfortable. Only a few people noticed. I wasn't originally supposed to attend. In fact, Ryan probably assumed I would stay far away. But I was there, not hidden, not sneaking around. Just another guest, calm, quiet, watching, waiting. When Ryan finally noticed me, the expression on his face was priceless: confusion, shock, concern. For a brief moment, his confidence cracked. Then he recovered, smiled, and continued greeting people. That reaction alone told me something important. He was nervous, very nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. As the evening progressed, more guests arrived. More conversations happened. More questions started appearing. Questions Ryan didn't expect. Questions from people who had recently learned pieces of the truth. Questions about missing payments, delayed projects, broken promises, conflicting information, nothing dramatic yet, just small cracks, small signs, small warning signals. Ryan kept smiling, kept answering, kept pretending everything was fine, but I could see it. The pressure, the uncertainty, the fear beginning to grow behind his eyes. Then came the speeches. The moment Ryan had been waiting for all night. A stage stood at the front of the ballroom. Large screens displayed photos from the company's history. Music played. Guests gathered around tables. The lights dimmed, and Ryan stepped onto the stage. The applause was loud, very loud. He smiled proudly, adjusted the microphone, and began speaking. For the first few minutes, everything went exactly according to plan. He talked about hard work, determination, success, teamwork, overcoming challenges. The usual inspirational business speech. People nodded, clapped, listened. Then something changed. One of the investors stood up, a respected man named Richard. Someone Ryan desperately needed on his side. Richard raised his hand. "Before you continue," he said, "I have a question." The room became quiet. Ryan smiled politely. "Of course." Richard didn't smile back. "I'd like clarification regarding the financial projections sent last month." The room grew even quieter. Ryan's expression tightened, just slightly. Most people didn't notice. "I did," Richard continued. "The numbers presented to investors don't match the internal reports we've recently reviewed." A murmur spread through the crowd. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, then laughed. A forced laugh. "I'm sure that's just a misunderstanding." Richard didn't sit down. "Is it?" The room felt different now. The celebration atmosphere was disappearing. Replacing it was something else. Curiosity. Concern. Suspicion, Ryan answered carefully, trying to maintain control, trying to redirect the conversation. But every answer created new questions, and every question attracted more attention. Soon, another investor spoke up. Then another. Then another. Each person raising concerns. Each person referencing different information. Different promises. Different versions of the truth. Ryan looked increasingly uncomfortable. Sweat appeared on his forehead. His confident smile vanished. For the first time all evening, he looked trapped. Because he was. The stories he'd been telling different people were finally colliding, and there was no way to explain all of them at once. No way to keep everyone satisfied. No way to hide the contradictions. Not anymore. The room wasn't hostile. Not yet, but it wasn't supportive either. People were thinking, connecting notes, connecting dots. And once people start doing that, the truth moves very quickly. Ryan could feel it. Everyone could. The evening he thought would celebrate his success was becoming something entirely different. Something he never saw coming. And this was only the beginning. By 8:30, the atmosphere inside the ballroom had completely changed. Nobody was celebrating anymore. Nobody cared about speeches. Nobody cared about awards. The only thing people cared about was understanding what was happening. Questions were spreading from table to table. Conversations became quieter, more serious, more focused. Guests who had never spoken before were suddenly comparing information, comparing experiences, comparing promises. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Ryan had told different stories to different people. Now, those people were talking to each other, and every conversation made the situation worse. Far worse. Ryan attempted to regain control. He returned to the microphone, asked everyone to relax, promised explanations, promised answers, promised transparency. The irony was almost painful. Transparency. That word hung in the air like a joke. Then another voice spoke up. This time it wasn't an investor. It wasn't a client. It wasn't a business partner. It was Vanessa. The room immediately fell silent. Every head turned toward her, including Ryan's. His face changed instantly. Confusion, then to concern, then fear. Real fear. Because for the first time all evening, he didn't know what was about to happen. Vanessa stood slowly, the engagement ring still visible, still sparkling. But now it looked different somehow. Less like a symbol of love, more like evidence. She walked toward the stage. Each step seemed to echo through the ballroom. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Everyone watched. Ryan forced a smile. Vanessa? She stopped beside him, looked at him, then looked at the audience. For several seconds, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, much calmer than anyone expected, including Ryan. I have a question too. Ryan's smile disappeared. What question? She looked directly into his eyes. The truth. The silence that followed felt endless. Absolute silence. The kind of silence that only exists when people realize something important is about to happen. Vanessa continued. Which version is real? Ryan blinked. What are you talking about? But his voice betrayed him. He already knew. Everyone could hear it. Everyone could see it. Vanessa didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't accuse. Instead, she calmly listed facts, dates, meetings, promises, financial statements, conversations, specific details, one after another, each fact creating another crack, each answer exposing another lie. The room watched in disbelief, because this wasn't gossip. This wasn't speculation. This was evidence. Real evidence. Verifiable evidence. The kind that can't be dismissed with excuses. Ryan tried responding, tried interrupting, tried redirecting. Nothing worked. Every explanation created new contradictions. Every denial created new questions. And every question pushed him deeper into a corner. Then something remarkable happened. Other people started speaking. Clients, former employees, business contacts, people who had experienced similar situations, people who had been promised one thing and received another, people who suddenly realized they weren't alone. The stories began connecting, like puzzle pieces, and the final picture was devastating. Not because Ryan had committed some shocking crime, not because of a single dramatic event, because of a pattern, years of manipulation, years of half-truths, years of promises designed to benefit one person, him. By now, nobody was listening to Ryan anymore. Not really. People were listening to each other. And that's when his control finally disappeared. Completely. For years, he controlled every narrative, every conversation, every version of reality. Now that control was gone, and there was nothing he could do about it. I stood near the back of the ballroom watching everything unfold. Quietly, calmly. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to confront him. The truth was doing all the work, better than I ever could. Then Ryan looked directly at me, across the crowded room. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw something I had never seen before. Not arrogance, not confidence, not manipulation, consequences. For the first time, Ryan understood what was happening. People weren't turning against him because of me. They weren't turning against him because of Vanessa. They were reacting to his own choices, his own actions, his own lies. That realization hit him hard, very hard. The man who always had an answer suddenly had none. The man who always controlled the conversation couldn't stop it. The man who believed he was the smartest person in the room was discovering something painful. The room had changed, and he was no longer in control. The event ended early, very early. Not because anyone officially canceled it, because nobody wanted to stay. Groups formed throughout the ballroom, private conversations, serious discussions, difficult questions. People exchanged phone numbers, scheduled meetings, requested documents. The celebration was over. The investigation had begun. Ryan stood near the stage looking completely lost. I almost didn't recognize him. The confident businessman was gone. The polished speaker was gone. The charismatic storyteller was gone. Only reality remained. And reality wasn't kind. One by one, guests left. Some shook their heads. Some looked disappointed. Some looked angry. Others simply looked exhausted. Nobody looked impressed anymore. Around 10 o'clock, the ballroom was nearly empty. Only a handful of people remained. Vasessa removed her engagement ring, slowly, carefully, then placed it on a nearby table. Ryan stared at it, speechless. For once in his life, he had no words, no explanation, no story, nothing. Vanessa didn't cry, didn't create a scene. She simply walked away and never looked back. That moment hit Ryan harder than anything else that night. You could see it, feel it. The final consequence becoming real. The future he thought he was building had vanished. Just like that, I should have felt victorious. Maybe part of me did. A small part. But mostly I felt something unexpected. Relief. Pure relief. Because for months, maybe years, Ryan had controlled my emotions, his lies, his choices, his betrayal. Everything revolved around him. Not anymore. That chapter was ending. Finally, as I prepared to leave, Ryan approached me, slowly, carefully, like a man walking through the ruins of his own decisions. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he said something I never expected. You planned this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and suddenly I understood something important. Even now. Even after everything. Even after the evidence. Even after the consequences. He still didn't fully understand. He still believed someone done this to him, instead of understanding that he had done it to himself. So, I gave him the only answer he deserved. No, Ryan? His expression tightened. I continued. You planned this. Then I walked away. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't look back. Outside, the night air felt different. Lighter, cleaner, freer. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia, just 3 words. Love you, Mom? I smiled, a real smile. Not the forced smiles I'd worn for months. A genuine one. Because suddenly I realized something. The revenge wasn't the event. It wasn't the exposure. It wasn't watching Ryan lose control. The real revenge was surviving, healing, moving forward, building a better life. Everything else was just the consequence of truth, catching up with someone who spent too long running from it. Still, the story wasn't over. Not quite. Because while Ryan's public image had collapsed in a single night, the true fallout was only beginning, and the weeks ahead would change all of our lives forever.